In a world full of bad news, this podcast is a source of good news, real talk, and real inspiration. On this show, you'll hear stories of growth, legacy, and entrepreneurship. Everyday people who overcome real challenges to build something meaningful. My name is Steven Padernacht, third generation Bronx born and raised in the real estate game. This is the Padernacht Podcast, brick by brick. Today's guest is someone who lives at the intersection of leadership, personal development, and purpose-driven execution. Brandon Gaydorus is a 5-time author, business, and public speaking coach, and the founder of Warm Heart Life, where he helps individuals and organizations turn their values into action. He's the organizer behind TEDx Stanford, a platform that brings big ideas to the local stage. He's someone who doesn't just talk about growth, but builds frameworks to help others live it. Whether it's working with emerging leaders, developing voices for the stage, or pushing boundaries of personal excellence, Brandon brings heart, clarity, and systems into everything he does. We're diving into what it takes to grow brick by brick, not as professionals, but as people who want to make a difference and meaningful dent in this world. Let's get into it. So, tell me, what do you think when you hear an intro like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Whenever I'm on a podcast and I hear some of those accolades, it's like, oh, wow, holy crap, But a lot of people wouldn't know what it was like early on. When I was growing up, I lived in a household with very loving parents, but there wasn't a lot of social life. So I didn't know life too much outside of my home. And when I went to college, I started learning things really quick. And my first internship, I was in Rumson, New Jersey. I was at a country club, very nice country club. Where I grew up in Binghamton, there was one country club in a 30-mile radius. So it was not a normal thing. Just to give people context, Greenwich, the town right next to us right now, has 8 country clubs in the town, right? So I wasn't used to this type of atmosphere. And I go work at this country club. I get a D on the internship. So they graded us on the internship. I got a D, which is about as pathetic of a grade as you can get.
Passing.
Yeah.
It's passing.
But like I showed up, I worked hard, but they weren't happy with a lot of my communication skills, how I presented myself. And a lot of this was just not knowing. I didn't even know. And after the internship, I talked to my boss and he's like, listen, a lot of this was my fault. Like I wasn't there for half your internship because he was one of the best golfers for a club pro in the entire country. Mm-hmm. So in golf, there's 4 major championships. He played in 2 of them that summer. So that's how good this guy was. But he was in charge of the business side of the golf course. So he was my boss and he wasn't there most of the summer. So the second in line has to take on the burden of his role and his actual role. And so there just wasn't a lot of training. And the other pro that was there, he was new to the course, so he didn't know a lot of this stuff either. So me and the other intern, we just got thrown into the fire, and we had to figure out things on the go. And it was just, there was so much I didn't know. But after that phone call with him a couple months after, he said, if I were you, I'd give it one more shot at a new course. And I went to this course on Cape Cod, and I said, ain't nobody's going to work harder than me this summer. Not only did I get an A, but I gained a mentor. And it was the assistant caddy master. This was his retirement job. He was a successful leader his whole life. He ran grocery stores, ice cream shops, things outside of the food industry as well. But he knew how to lead people. And so I needed a mentor like that. And he was my mentor the next 4 or 5 years. And so that was a cool moment for me. And I think a big reason why I spend a lot of my time now giving back to others is because I know what it's like to not know. I know what it's like to be looked at as someone who's doing something wrong and have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no one there helping you try and work through these things. So I think that's a big reason why I wrote The Care Principle, Creating a Life That Makes a Difference to the World Under 30, and then skip college, read this, because I knew during that phase of life of 17 to 26, there's a lot of life lessons that you need to be taught these things. Like, of course you have to mess up. You could probably relate to that time in your life too. It's like sometimes someone could tell you to not drink, but sometimes you have to get pulled over by the cops and have that talk with them, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is something I should never do again. You know, it's like, I remember my college roommate, he got a DUI, and he looked over at me the next day. He said, Brandon, no Uber is more expensive than
than a court case or a suspended license, revoked license. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, and sometimes you have to go through those lessons both personally and professionally, like that first heartbreak in a relationship, that first raise in a job when you actually ask for the raise. You know, it's just like, so yeah, it's always interesting hearing those things, and it does make me proud hearing those, knowing that I've taken a lot of the knowledge that I've learned from others and put that out there to the world. Like we were talking before, and you're like, you know, I really want this podcast to be a great platform where people can put out their message of what they want to be remembered by.
Yep.
And
legacy.
Yeah, and it's just like, I used to study this guy Jim Rohn.
This guy Jim Rohn?
This guy Jim Rohn.
Some guy named Jim Rohn.
Yeah, and the dude was dead when I was studying him, but he just put so much videos out there. He passed away in 2009, and I got into personal development probably in 2013, and so a lot of his content was out there on the internet.
Yep.
And I'm studying this guy. He's not alive anymore. And this guy is inspiring me more than any of the teachers that I was learning from in college. And that was not a punt against them. But this guy had put his legacy out there to the world through books and through audio CDs is what they had back then. And then
cassette tapes.
Cassette tapes. Yeah,
VHS tapes, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and then eventually those shifted onto YouTube, which brought in audiences like me at that time. And I'm forever grateful for guys like Jim, and he's a big reason why I started writing, and he's a big reason why eventually I started putting myself on camera after staying away from it for many, many, many years.
So you grew up in Binghamton, right? Brothers, sisters. What was your household like growing up?
So I'm a middle child. I got an older sister. She's about a year and a half older than me. And then I got a younger brother, about 4 years younger than me. And so I would say my brother's probably my best friend. I think as we got older, we started to see very similarly on a lot of things. And so it's cool. I just went to the Ryder Cup with him last Saturday. That was
that's nice. Yeah, that's cool.
It was a great time. And then my sister is a great role model. I mean, she's about to have her first kid. And,
congratulations to her.
Yeah, so it's exciting to kind of get to know her on this level. I went out to California where she lives to visit her and her husband this summer, and she was about midway through the pregnancy, maybe a little bit further, and so it was some interesting conversations. You know, I was picking up a lot of things, to be honest.
Well, now that you're older. Right, growing up, I grew up the youngest of three, and you know, growing up, it's different, right? Like you just kind of thrown into this. You're born into this life, and you have these people who are now your siblings and your family, and you're told that these are the people who you're supposed to love, and you grow up, and you're like, okay. But as you get older, you see the type of people that you turn into, and you develop those relationships. And I think it's beautiful that you're able to now see different sides of your sister, and for me too, right? Like when I have conversations with my brothers now, it's a lot different because now we're all adults and we're able to see things through the same lens. All right, so you're in Binghamton, and from Binghamton, you grew up there, you went to high school there, and then where did you go to college?
So the college...
Or did you not go to college? I'm sorry, because you wrote a book that said skip college, read this. But so did you go to college?
So the thing with me is school was always easy. Like school was, and I'm not talking valedictorian easy. Like I didn't care about that. School was just easy for me to pass, and I just was a little bit frustrated that a lot of the stuff we were learning didn't feel very applicable to the real world. So when I went to college, I wanted to get out of New York because I had one goal. I wanted to make as many friends as possible. I wanted to see what life was like outside of the household I grew up. And that's a big part of why I do believe in college is it gets you in a different atmosphere and it forces you to grow up really quick.
Well, the social aspect of college, I think, is extremely important because, listen, you could learn, whatever, geometry and trigonometry and whatever it is, but you're never really going to use that, to your point. It's not really applicable. But the social aspect of it and learning how to be on your own and do your laundry and figure out how you're going to have dinner, all that stuff for an 18-year-old kid is super important.
It's a big step. And so I wanted to go out of state. So there was a guy who was 2 years ahead of me that told me about this golf program thing. And because I didn't know what I wanted to go to school for.
Very rare that people do know what they want to go to school for.
Yeah.
Ask an 18-year-old kid, like, hey, so declare your major. Dude, I'm 18. What do you, like?
Yeah, it's like, what do you... And so I played high school golf, and a guy who was on my golf team, he went to this place called Methodist University in North Carolina, and he told me the summers he would go intern at these nice courses, and he was just meeting all these people. He was making a good amount of money compared to what most college summer jobs would pay you.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, I want to do that because that's going to give me an opportunity to see more places, meet more people. So I went for golf management, and I ended up getting a business degree. But what was funny is my dad didn't want me to go out of state because in New York, if you go to SUNY school, it's a lot less.
Oh, yeah.
But we visited this school, SUNY Delhi, and the issue was they were unaccredited PGM program. So as soon as we visited there, my dad's like, yeah, you're not doing that. That makes no sense. Mm-hmm. So we visited NC State, Methodist University in Coastal Carolina because they had the program, and I just applied to Methodist. That was the only college I've ever applied to, and then the only college I went to. And so I went there for 4 years.
And that's North Carolina?
North Carolina.
All right,
yeah.
so you leave Binghamton, which is pretty much a small town based around the SUNY there, right? The SUNY College. I imagine it's a college town. And now you end up in North Carolina for 4 years.
Yeah.
What was that? Was there a big culture shock for you?
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, I go to Fayetteville, North Carolina, which for people who know the Army or the military, there's a big base there called Fort Bragg.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden we're on the golf course, and you hear something that sounds like thunder or like a gunshot, but it like weird because it was so far away, and you didn't really know what it was, and then you started to get used to it. Oh, that was just a big gunshot, and so that took some getting used to. And then Fort Bragg, obviously, it's a big gated in place, so you get used to that. Obviously, being on campus, they kind of have you kind of feel a little secluded from everything, but anytime you go out of there, it was interesting. J. Cole was from Fayetteville. So I actually there was this place called Cookout, which is kind of like the fast food place down there.
Okay.
And we would go to Cookout. That was like the thing. I went there one time, and I was ordering food inside, and all of the workers are huddled around the window, the drive-through window.
Yeah.
And I'm just ordering my food, not thinking anything of it. And then the lady goes, "Damn, you made me miss J. Cole." I said, "Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
you could have. I would have waited."
Yeah, go huddle around the window with the rest of them. It's fine.
Yeah.
All right, so now you're in North Carolina for 4 years. So what's the next move after you graduate? You said you got a degree in business management, was it?
Yeah. So business management with a minor in golf management.
Okay. So explain what golf management means, because for me, I'm not a big golfer. I'm not really a golfer at all. But So explain to me what a degree in golf management means.
It's like the business side of golf. So like the people who run the golf courses,
okay,
typically they'll have their PGA. That's what it's called, PGA, Professional Golfers Association.
Yep.
So that's what I went to school for. I didn't really have much interest in doing that after the first couple interests, but I enjoyed the fitness side. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to figure out a way to still keep my PGA, but do the fitness side. And so that's where I was really passionate about. And I started it when I was 20 years old. I was sitting in this mandatory seminar my junior year, and this guy comes in. He was about 65 years old. He comes in. I didn't want to listen to him until he started talking. And I went from the guy who always had his head down on his forehead at these types of things to wide awake, eyes open, because this guy talked about how he wanted to be the best in the world at what he did. And all he did to be the best in the world at what he wanted to be the best at was write down the top 10 people who he thought were the best. And then he went, learned, observed, shadowed, studied, met all 10 of those people.
Learn, observe, study.
Shadowed, studied, and met all 10 of those people. And his whole speech was just talking about how he ended up meeting this person, what he learned from that person. And it gave me the confidence to know that successful people do actually want to help. They just have to see some initiative from someone who wants to help.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I realized the big reason why they want that initiative is because they've likely tried to help out a lot of people in their life that haven't taken them up on the help that they've given them.
Yeah, for sure. I'm in real estate, 20 something years, and a lot of times, like, listen, I've probably had in my career, hundreds of people ask me, hey, so I want to do real estate. I want to do this. How do I? And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, here, first step is this. And you give them like that first or second step and you wait for them to come back to you. Because if you start pouring knowledge into people and they're not necessarily ready for it, like, I feel like you're just going to scare them away. So I'm like, okay, do these simple tasks and then come back to me. And then if I see they do that, okay, cool. Here's the next 2 tasks. And then if they don't make it back to you after that first round, you kind of know that maybe they were just motivated in that moment. They're not really actually committed to it. And another thing I like to do when I'm speaking to people who ask me about that, I say, well, what are you willing to give up? Well, what do you mean? I'm willing to do X, Y, and Z. No. What are you willing to give up? Are you willing to give up Saturday mornings? Are you willing to give up Friday nights? Are you willing to give up your Sundays, your football Sundays? If you're willing to do that, then we could have a conversation. But if you're not willing to do those things, then you're not going to be successful in this field, or you're going to find it very difficult. And I feel like you probably meet a lot of entrepreneurs on a daily basis, people who say that they want to do certain things. Do you ever find that you have people that say, hey, Brandon, teach me how to do X, Y, and Z, and then they just kind of, I guess their motivation maybe, just kind of wanes off and you don't see or hear from them again?
Yeah, I think there's 2 types of people in the business world. There's the pretenders, the people who say they're going to make things happen, but when you give them one challenge, when one friend at dinner says, oh, why would you do that? Nobody has success in that. When one thing pops up, all of a sudden they go from saying that they want to have 100 units in real estate to never even having their first purchase, right? And so in any field, you can think of it in your field, I can think of it in my field. There's so many people who tell me they want to be a phenomenal speaker. There's so many people who tell me their dream is to have a TEDx talk.
Yep.
And yet I've hosted 2 of them and they haven't even attended to see
what it is,
what the speakers are doing that actually got the talk.
Yep.
I mean, I just laughed. My first big speaking engagement, I went to that event 8 years in a row to meet the speakers, to study the speakers, to apply what they said throughout the year. I followed them on Instagram, on social media, to see what certifications they had, to see what articles they were putting out, what magazines they were featured in. And on the 9th year, I got that speaking engagement. Nice. On the 9th year.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a paid one. I didn't even care about getting the money. I was just like, hey, that's somewhere where I want to speak someday, and I think I can help people because I've sat in the audience for so many years. I know what people from the audience want to hear. And so what was funny about that is when I was 20, I got this advice from that guy, Lou Miller, who said, if you want to be the best, then learn from the best. And his whole hour talk was just on different ways to be able to do that worked for him. And I was like, oh, if that worked for him, that could work for me.
Yep.
I put my top 10 list together, 20 years old. 3 weeks later, I'm on the phone with the number 3 guy on my list. He tells me every single thing I need to do to be successful in that field. 6 years later, a month after I spoke on that stage, so a month before I spoke on that stage, the one that it took me 9 years to get on, a month before that, I get an email saying that I'm top 50 in America as a golf fitness trainer. And I was featured in this magazine, Golf Digest, which in that world is about as big as it gets for that. And so now all of a sudden, I'm 26 years old. I'm nominated top 50 in America, and I'm at arguably about as high up in this field as you can get. And I thought it was everything I wanted until it happened. And I was lonely, questioning if this was what I wanted to do the rest of my life. And I just knew there was so much more that I could do if I could accumulate that knowledge that fast. And so that's when I really took a lot of time to think about like what's next. And that led to me pursuing this bucket list business that I had already kind of started, but barely, like it wasn't bringing. And that allowed me to pursue this bucket list business of growing together with people called Warm Heart Life to a whole new level. And so the pandemic hit shortly after that. And I called my mentor because I had no idea what to do. I said, what do I do? And he said, I can tell you one thing. You can't go to the bar and pick up girls anymore. And boy, did I need to hear that because I was so tense. And even though he didn't know what was going to happen, he knew that it's important to just loosen up the tension when there's times of obscurity. And so after that, he said, Brandon, I can't tell you what to do right now, but I can tell you during times like this, if you're there for your people, you'll be able to make it through. And so my fitness business, I figured out how to take that from, it went down half in like a week.
Well, that's because of the pandemic, correct?
Because of the pandemic, it went down about 50% in a week. And then by the end of the year, I was actually doing 50% more than I was doing before the pandemic by focusing on being there for my people.
Yep.
But that gave me more time to focus on this bucket list business. And I started mentoring high school and college students. And I did that for almost 2 years.
And you were mentoring them in regards to public speaking, personal development?
Personal development. So I just kept thinking, okay, I got to be there for my people. And I did 9 internships. So I was like, who's more qualified to help these students who are getting dropped from their internships right now than a guy who is focused on getting dream internships for, the years prior to that. And so I put a post up on Indeed and I said, hey, I'm starting this mentorship internship program. It doesn't cost anything, but this is what is involved with it. And the whole goal of the internship was to help them get their dream internships.
Gotcha. So you put an ad up looking for students who maybe are having difficulties getting their internship.
Well, there was a huge, they say people get paid in direct proportion to the significance of the problems that they solve.
Yes.
And I saw a huge problem. All these students getting dropped from their internships. All of a sudden they go from going to in-person schools to some of them are virtual, some of them are delayed. It was a complete mess. And so I said, okay, I can help these students during this time. I don't know exactly how, but I know I can help them. And so the main thing that I knew I could help them with is thinking differently. So to be able to go from a guy who would just fall asleep in class because he hated what he was learning to all of a sudden getting nominated top 50 in America at his field and the youngest person in that category, to be able to get there that fast, there was a lot of things that I learned as far as the thought process to think differently. And so I knew I could help them with that. And it was a very fulfilling couple years. I would invite different guest speakers to hop on. I would do these programs in 5 to 7 week increments, and I would have guest speakers pop on. And one of them was my mentor, Tom Plummer, who taught me public speaking and a lot of what I know in business. And in 2021, towards the end of the year, he's like, hey, man, you should start teaching a speaker school. He's like, you got a good following. And at that time, I had just had my first personal development conference in October 2021. He said, you got a good enough following. You got something here. That's kind of how he's like, you got something here. and I thought he was crazy because he was the one who taught a speaker school. So why is he telling me to speak? And he wasn't even telling me to teach it with him. He didn't even give me any structure. He just saw something in me that I couldn't even see. And so a couple months later, I was crazy enough to call the best speaker I knew in the area. His name's Carl Michelle, and he made his living speaking in the New York City school systems as a vendor. And so I said, hey, do you want to teach a speaker school with me? And he said, yeah, we can do it at my place. And because he had a studio at the time. And so we gave ourselves 10 days to fill 10 spots. We filled them in 7 days. And then the day before, we put together the whole layout of the 4 weeks of the speaker school.
So that was your first that was your first, I guess, experience now building a business around this speaker school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess you found it to be successful that first round?
Yes, more than I thought. Because at the time for this business, the main thing I was doing was I was doing business coaching. But I told my friends, I said, my goal is to help 21 people get to 21,000 a month, and they don't have to pay me till they get there. So I wasn't.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, like I wasn't an idiot. Like I knew that I needed repetitions with coaching, because with personal training, it took me about 3 years to really start getting paid. But then I was getting paid, or people were paying. I wasn't necessarily getting all this, but people were paying probably in the 95 percentile of what they would pay a personal trainer, 3 years into this.
Yeah.
And so I knew that there was repetitions that was needed. So a big part of that business at the time was the business coaching. And I had just had my first client pay me $1,000 a month because he was a young kid in college, making about $2,000 to $5,000 a month with his college buddies, and he saw my Instagram post, and he said, "Man, if you can help me figure out how to get there, I'll gladly pay you $1,000 a month."
Yeah.
And I worked with him for 2 years. January 2023 was the last month we worked together. They did $380,000 that month.
Wow.
That month.
Wow.
And they went on to do about $5 million that year.
That's awesome.
As like 23-year-olds.
Yeah. That is absolutely amazing. So I would imagine monetarily you saw success, but what did it feel like to help these people? To help that group of kids, to help your first clients? Like, I imagine that, going back to your story of like you sitting there in school, falling asleep, basically on your forearm, which I've done countless times.
Yeah.
Until you found something that actually perked your attention and now you sit up, right? Like, how did it feel for you to be able to now help these people, and how did that make you feel inside?
Well, that was the whole goal. When I was really reevaluating where I wanted to go with my career and, quite frankly, my life, I would take time I heard this advice from this guy, Ty Lopez. He had this program called the 67 Steps, and each day you watched a video, and he had basically a concept from a successful person. And one of the steps he talked about how one of the best things you can do is just go to a random place without any thoughts on your mind, without any sound, and with limited amount of people around, and just go there and think. And so I would take a lot of time to think. I would go to this beach, Byram Beach in Greenwich. I would just sit there and think. And one day I was like, if I do start another business, I just don't want it to feel like I climbed to the top of the mountain and I'm the only one there. Mm-hmm. I want to climb up another mountain, but with a massive group of people.
Yep.
And so that was the thought. That was like the visual that helped start shape this concept. And the whole goal was just to grow together with people. I didn't have a product. I didn't have a service. I started with core values. I used to study this guy, Andy Frisella, and he talked about how people pay him hundreds of thousands of dollars to help him out with their business.
You're talking about First Form.
First Form, yeah. Yep. But he had been getting a lot of people reach out for consulting, and he said, people pay me tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars for this, and I just tell them the same thing every time. You just got to care a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And I was like, if this guy is talking about how powerful just caring more is, I'm going to dive deep into what he actually meant by that. And so I created core values based on the word care for Warm Heart Life. And the core values were shaped based off the concept of the top 10 rule. So I studied, in my mind, what I thought were some of the most successful companies in the country: Amazon, Walmart, Pandora Jewelers, and Starbucks.
Okay. So
I studied their core values, and I shaped the Warm Heart Life core values based on the acronym CARE and many of the concepts in those. And so I said, if I can have a similar thought process on the values of Warm Heart Life, maybe I got a chance of building something bigger than I could possibly think of. And so the core values came out to C is create opportunities for yourself and others. A, active lifestyle, but not just like physically fit. It's through your words, it's through your actions. So like active lifestyle is constantly staying positive in a world full of negativity.
Yep.
Active lifestyle is staying consistent with the things that you need to do today that could lead to a better tomorrow. Active lifestyle is consistently being the person that you would like to be viewed at by others and how you would want to be treated by others. And so active lifestyle is so much more than just staying fit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then R stands for respect is earned, not just given. We could have mutual respect for each other for 3 years, but if one day I go behind your back and do something unethical, then all of a sudden you're never going to have respect for me again. So that core value constantly stays in my mind. Respect is earned, not just given.
Yep.
Every time I've seen Claudio, I don't know how many times this week, every time I see him, I still, that core values goes through my head. I still have to be the friend that I should be, right? So that sticks with me all of the time, especially when I'm tired on a business coaching call. I have no energy, 25 calls that day. I'm like, listen, respect is earned, not just given. Wake up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need no coffee to wake me up from that.
Yeah.
I need that core value to hit my brain and be like, all right, let's go. This person is taking their time, energy, and spending money to be able to talk with me right now.
Yep.
I don't care how tired I am right now. I got to wake the fuck up.
Yep.
And so...
Very true.
Yeah, so that sticks with me all the time. And then E stands for excel forward. And when I created that core value, one of the things I thought about is the quickest way to get to point B is to learn from the people who are at point B. So you got point A, then you got point B. The quickest way to get there is a straight line. And so that was the concept behind excelling forward. If I can help more people learn from people at point B, then maybe something special can happen. And what's crazy is 4 years after that core value was implemented, it turned into a conference that changed my life called A to B Con. Like I had no idea that A to B Con would happen in this business, but 4 years prior, I knew that that was a core value I wanted to continue to live by and grow with through the business. So the core values have shaped everything that has happened with Warm Heart Life.
So Warm Heart Life, I just want to make sure I'm following on a linear path. So Warm Heart Life was born out of your after the golf and after the golf training and COVID. And it started off with you just training people or the interns, and then it turned into a business. And recently, I think you said you've now have opened the brick and mortar.
Yep.
Right? So Warm Heart Life has gone from an idea, a small idea in whatever year, 2020, you built these, you built it around these 4 core values, and now you've able to open up a brick and mortar. Tell me a little bit about the brick and mortar and how you've kind of built your business to now excel even more and take it to the next step with the brick and mortar.
Yeah, so originally the concept behind Warm Heart was Warm Heart Fitness and Entertainment, and the whole idea was that I would I would own a gym that had a world-class gym facility that hosted the best concerts for up-and-coming musicians at night.
Okay, all right, that's an interesting...
Yeah, and what happened is people were not understanding like how that worked because they're 2 totally different businesses.
Yeah.
So that was 2018 that formed, and then 2019 I split the businesses up and I had a musician showcase night. And so that was where I thought I was going with Warm Heart Life. I thought I was going in the personal development side of musicians because the music industry is something that I'm very passionate about. One of my mentors is the COO of Time Warner Records. And so I had many, many deep conversations with him in my mid-20s learning about the music industry. And I loved the music industry. I studied Scooter Braun a lot. He was the one who kind of helped Justin Bieber take off.
Yeah.
And so I just saw a big opportunity there because there's a lot of artists that have a lot of talent that don't have the business side figured out or the belief, like someone who believes in them. But I had that event, and then I was ready to do the next one, and then the pandemic hit.
COVID.
Like I literally had the contract, and then when I got back, I started hearing wind of this COVID thing, and so I just never brought it back.
Yeah.
And then that's when I kind of shifted to the personal development side. And still, I wasn't making much money with Warm Heart Life. I think 2019, I think I made $1,000. 2020, I think I made $1,000. And meanwhile, my fitness business is keeping me healthy.
Afloat, yeah.
So like I was able to design this business around the hours I did have because I had a healthy business supporting me. And so 2021, I was at a seminar. It was a 10X exit, so like the Cardone stuff.
Oh, yeah, the Grant Cardone 10X, okay.
And they were really the only people that I was seeing that was having in-person stuff in 2021, like early in the year.
Yeah.
And so I started going to in-person events again. I probably went down to Florida like 7 times that year. Wow. I was just like, I was looking for any excuse possible
Florida
to get
was
around.
open.
Yeah, I wanted to get around. I felt healthier around people. Like,
oh, well, a lot of people do.
Yeah,
That's,
like,
you know, going back to our conversation about the social aspect of college, right? Like, I feel bad for the kids that, you know, had their high school or college experience like stuck on Zoom during the pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, or little kids who learn, you know, whatever, kindergarten, first grade, whatever it is, behind a screen. I feel bad for those kids.
Yeah. There's a TED Talk by Susan Pinker, and she talks about the #1 key to longevity. And if you were to guess what the #1 key to longevity is, what would you say?
I would say social connections.
Yeah.
I would say social connections.
Yeah. I mean, she gives this whole TED Talk explaining the different areas of life. A lot of people think it's genetics. A lot of people think air quality is a big deal. A lot of people think hypertension. A lot of people think what you eat. Do you smoke? Do you drink? A lot of people think all this stuff.
Those, a lot of people sound like a bunch of scientists.
Yeah.
And not actual people. Those are people who sit in a lab all day that are probably lonely themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like those people, but forget about it. Like social, you got to think about it. What's the first thing we always talk about? Lonely old men, lonely old women. Like they just sit in their house, and like when people retire, you know, like it's important for you to find your next thing. Like I always say that, like I want to retire very young, but retire is relative, right? Like it's what you make it.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit in my house all day alone or whatever it is. I want to now go and do what I want to do in this world and impact the lives that I want to impact. And loneliness is something that I think forces people to die a lot sooner than they need to.
100%. You know, she says, she puts this graph up on there that sticks with me. It'll probably stick with me the rest of my life. And the graph shows the #1 key to longevity is social integration. And a close second, it was like right there. Close second was close relationships. And then everything else was like that.
Yep.
And so when I heard this in 2020, I was like, screw this. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to get around good people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was an integral part of me taking Warm Heart more seriously. And so when I was sitting there at this workshop in the summer of 2021, it was the 10X exit. And so they got us thinking about the exit of a business.
Yep.
But not just the exit of a business, the exit of your role in a business so you can keep scaling it.
Of course.
You could go to the next. And so I was like, all right, screw this. If I'm gonna take this business seriously, because I still didn't know at the time. In the summer of 2021, I wasn't sure if I was gonna grow a gym or if I was going to take this personal development business really seriously.
Yeah.
I'm being honest with you. Like, I really didn't know.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you had a lot of stuff going on and you're really at a crossroads.
Yeah.
And how old are you at this time?
I'm probably, at this time, I'm probably like 27.
Okay. All right.
Maybe just turned 28.
I got to be honest with you, though. When I was 27, 28, I wasn't thinking about none of this stuff.
Yeah.
So God bless your soul. Because, like, when I was 27, 28, I was not thinking about this. I was not thinking about my... I would say that I bloomed later than others when it came to like business, right? Like I've always been involved in business. I always cared about making money.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be financially free. I worked, you know, my father kind of brought me into the business and kind of gave me a, you know, when I graduated college, it was, you know, like he gave me a choice. You want to go into your field, which was public relations, or I could teach you how to not ever depend on somebody for a check ever again. I chose that route. I got my real estate license and I've been, you know, haven't had a job since, a quote unquote job. but I built a career out of that. And so at 27, 28, you know, like I was not thinking about that. I was thinking about making money, but I was thinking about having fun and hanging out. So kudos to you for actually being at this crossroads trying to figure out what you were doing. And pandemic, so a lot's going on.
Lots going on. And so I'm sitting in that room that day. I'm like, listen, if I'm going to take this Warm Heart Life business seriously, I want to think in a way that's going to motivate me.
Yeah, of course.
So, because I had known from the fitness side, I had known that if you really want to build something special, you're probably going to have to commit at least 10 years to just getting to like a great place.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, let me just take $1 billion and start breaking down some numbers. Let me just do some simple math and start trying to figure things out. And so I realized that 100,000 times 10,000 is $1 billion. And so I had just wrote Skip College, Read This. I had been mentoring these high school and college students for years, and I kind of been trying to figure out the next step because I was doing that for free, right?
Yeah.
So I was trying to kind of figure out the next step, and I just said, you know what? 10,000 seems like a great size of a university. It just seems like a great number for the size of a university. And so I was like, if we have 10,000 student universities, that's 100,000 students. And if they're paying 10,000 for the year, then we can reduce the college debt significantly. And we can focus on what the students actually need, which is they need social integration, but they also need to be in a work environment and something that interests them.
Also, they need to be around people that interest them and they want to learn.
Yeah, and making money. Like 18-year-olds need to learn how to start making money.
Yeah, and balance a checkbook.
Yeah, exactly.
And balance a checkbook.
But what you're saying there, I heard people say for years. But here's the thing. Why do most people not do that? Because they're not making money. Mm-hmm. So we need to get students making money. And if we can get them making money and reduce the costs that it costs to go to school, then they're not going to be in debt, but they're going to learn more applicable rules in the real world with how to balance a checkbook, how to do a profit and loss. Okay, maybe you don't need to spend $50 on drinks if you're trying to make sure that you have an even profit or loss, right? So it's kind of one of those things that is, in my mind, a huge opportunity. And people, when I talk about this vision, I've been talking about it for 4 years. People say, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? I say, listen, I don't know. If you were to ask me in 2021, I would have told you something different. If you would have told me in 2022, I would tell you something different. 2023, 2024, it would all be different. But the thing is, I know this is possible. And if it isn't, I'm going to give it my all to try and figure out how.
And what is the overarching theme? When you say, is it create $1 billion worth of universities, or like what is the overarching goal? Outside, you shared a very, very, very amazing goal with me. So tell me, what is the amazing goal?
The goal is to have the most impactful education system in the United States of America. And I would rather have parents send their kids to Warm Heart University than Yale, Harvard, Princeton, all of these schools. I want them to say, hey, my kid, Warm Heart University is where they need to go. And that's the goal. That's the goal. The goal is to, and Andrew Carnegie, who was at the time one of the wealthiest people in the world during his era, was a big motivation behind this. I actually went to his grave. It's in Sleepy Hollow.
Really?
Yeah, and I went there.
I'm a big Andrew Carnegie fan.
Yeah. I don't know if have you ever been to his grave?
No, I have not. I didn't know it was in Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah. So it's in Sleepy Hollow, New York, and I actually went there. I just wanted to take some time to think in a space that is dedicated to a pioneer in the business world. What was cool about Andrew Carnegie is for so long I had heard that he wanted to spend the first half of his life making as much money as he can, then the second half giving it all away. As I got older, I heard there was a different part of that. I heard there was 3 parts. He wanted to spend the first third of his life educating himself, the second third making as much money as possible.
And then giving it away.
And then giving it all away. And so I said, you know what? If there's 3 phases of life, if there's the education, the producing, and the giving back, there is a huge opportunity in the education system. And I started Googling this. I found out the education system is $1 trillion business. You know, that deals with stuff in the cloud and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I said that's where I want to focus my next 10 years.
But can I just say something? The education aspect of it, I feel like we have been taught that education needs to be so cookie cutter. Go to junior high school, then go to high school, then go to college, 4 years of college, and then if you want to go become a lawyer or a doctor, you got to go get your master's and your PhD, and you have to go through this cookie cutter lane. And I feel like what you're creating is an alternative to that. And there's no age barriers, if I'm correct. I imagine you have to be, 17, 18 years old to get in to your personal development. And you're creating this alternative, which I think is amazing because it's what more people need. Homeschooling, a buddy of mine was telling me the other day that he's actually doing homeschooling on his kids. And I'm like, wow, dude, like that's really cool. I'm like, where's the curriculum come from? And he's like, well, it's not really a curriculum. You go online and they walk you through certain things, but you can kind of teach your kid however you want to do it. And to our point earlier, I said, well, what about the social interaction? He's like, no, listen, he's in sports, he's in this, he's in that. So that's his social interaction, but we don't want him to necessarily have to learn what they want him to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be honest, there's not a ton that I have interest in changing in the normal system.
Yep.
Yeah. It's more of that 17 to 23-year-old range that I'm just really passionate about because, if you can instill the right thought process in those people, it's scary what can happen with them and we are going to need creative thinkers in this world of AI because what AI is doing is it's brainwashing the creative thinker. So I teach public speaking. Whenever someone comes to me and they say, hey, I just put together my speech, I used ChatGPT, is kind of one of those things I'm like, okay, I already know what this is going to sound like. And so one of the reasons why I think we still need to exude, teach, and encourage creativity is because AI is going to take over everything that we can do except for what we can do as humans, which is connect with other humans. And no robot can connect with a human like we can, right? There's something about the heart beating. There's something about the energy and the presence of being able to look in someone's eyes, right? So the one thing that we're really going to need as humans to be able to make it this next 20, 30 years is human connection.
Yep.
Right? We need that. And so we need to be able to work on our communication skills. We need to be able to work on our relationship skills. Relationship skills are very important. That's one thing. I've been working with a relationship coach for about 6 months now. And I told him, I said, listen, this is something that should be taught to every single person that is 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. If I knew what you told me over the last 6 months, I would be a completely different person in my 20s.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things when you're younger, they talk a lot about safe sex, right? When I've been working with a relationship coach, I've been learning about the right questions and the right thing to look for in someone so you can actually get to know them. Mm-hmm. If I was taught the right questions to ask, if I was taught what a green flag was and a red flag was, I would be a lot more interested in pursuing a relationship that is of value, right? But when we're younger, they think we just got to safe sex. No. I think what we need to do is I think we need to educate people on how to have proper polarity in a relationship so the relationships can be healthy. And if the relationships are healthy, then naturally a lot of other things are going to be a lot more aligned. And I don't think we're going to have a lot of the toxicity that is in many of these relationships. And I think younger people are going to make a lot better decisions because they understand the other person's perspective. And that's the thing, I do think that the other side is very important, but I think it's very important to understand people. And so we need to be teaching these things in school, especially in this AI-generated era.
Yeah. I think AI is a couple things, right? So like AI, first of all, I feel like it needs to be used as a tool, not an answer.
Yeah.
Right. So the student who comes to you and says, "Hey," or the speaker who comes to you and says, "Hey, I got my speech done on ChatGPT." If you're literally just going in there and just typing in a couple of things, "Hey, write me a speech on this, yada yada yada," and not actually reading it and then taking it and saying, "Okay, take this out, add this in," and polishing it yourself and using it as a tool, it's gonna end up not working to its best advantage. We're gonna become a society that's just dumbed down and run by AI.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way that we allow ourselves to not be run by AI is using it as a tool and teaching it that it is only a tool.
Yeah.
Because like the more you lean on AI, and I've learned this a lot recently by the more AI that I've been using, is like it's only gonna spit out what you ask it to. So if you don't actually use it and you say like, okay, just give me a description. So like in real estate, right? I could look at a real estate description, charming and elegantly, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this is AI. Like there's no human sort of emotion in this at all. It's very black and white. So to your point, I do agree that if we don't treat AI as a tool, it's going to start taking over our society. And more these kids, I feel bad for those 17 to 22-year-olds that are kind of in this wave because it's dangerous, right? Like when I was growing up, I had the internet and it was like, whoa, what is the internet? Like,
Yeah.
now they have AI where it's like it could do everything that you want it to do. Like, and if they don't learn and have these relationships and lessons that you're teaching people, we're just going to the whole society is just going to go downhill and we're going to turn into a bunch of robots. And it's scary.
100%.
It's scary. Now, as far as the safe sex aspect, you're right? Like, I never thought about it from that perspective. If you focus on the relationship you have with the other person before worrying about whether or not you're going to have sex with them, you wouldn't have to worry about the safe sex aspect because you know their values, you know their morals, listen, I don't know if you're asking questions about if you have STDs or whatever the case may be, but you know their morals and values. 90% of the safe sex conversations revolve around don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant. When I was growing up, I probably have you by a couple of years, but a lot of it was around STDs and passing those along. But it was more so like the conversation was more like don't get a girl pregnant, or for the female perspective, don't get pregnant. Now, if you know that person and you have that bond and you know their morals and it's like, listen, no, my mom would never let me, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to worry about the safe sex aspect because you know the person and you know who they are.
Yeah.
So I agree with everything that you're saying.
Yeah. And it's like whenever you say, and you're a parent, so you could probably relate to sometimes when this has happened, but whenever you say, don't do this, you need to do this, you have to do this.
Forget about it. Don't work.
In public speaking, it's probably the same when you're talking to your kids. In public speaking, whenever someone says that, it's basically like you're just jabbing the audience with like a light jab. And it just like, they're just sitting in the audience like, oh my gosh, when is this going to end, right?
Yeah.
So with one of the things I've learned from my relationship coach is he has 100 questions you should ask a female before sex, and 100 questions you should ask a male before sex.
And this is not like an interview. This is just over the course of...
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to sit here and interview you and say, okay, so wait, it's better if you weave it into conversations and you get to know somebody.
It can naturally be weaved in.
Yeah. It's like it's like the questions I have right here for you. Like if I just sat here and said, okay, so tell me what...
Yeah.
You weave it into a conversation and it just makes it more impactful and you get to learn the person.
Yeah, and there's a, I mean, in college, one of my buddies, I remember I don't know if he was on the verge of this or not, but I remember he was like crying and potentially on the verge of suicide after a breakup with his girlfriend at the time. And he probably looks back at that now and just kind of like laughs, he's married, he's got a couple kids. But like, I remember sitting with him and being like, oh shit, like, crap, this is like I better not say the wrong thing right here. Like, what does a good friend do here? But at the same time, if we could educate people on like, hey, this is why that happened. This is why she said this. This is one thing that maybe she could have done differently or maybe you could have done differently. If we could start to understand that, we're going to create a lot healthier relationships. And we need healthy relationships and we need proper communication in this current world. If we're not able to work on those two things, businesses are going to struggle to retain employees, and the divorce rate will continue to go in the wrong direction.
Well, leadership is something I feel like in today's society we are lacking, because people's leaders are on their phone and they're following the Instagram influencers and all of these. Listen, I don't want to go so crazy and call them, whatever, but it's essentially, it's just demigods, right? Like, we were warned against this years ago, and I don't know how religious you are, but like, we were warned against idolizing false gods. Like, literally, kids today are idolizing false gods. They're idolizing musicians. They're idolizing athletes. They're idolizing people who don't actually have impact in their day-to-day life, instead of idolizing their mom and dad who struggle every single day to put food on their table. Or, as you did, go out and make a top 10 list of 10 people who can influence you. Idolize those people who are actually putting forth the effort and leaving an impact on today's society. And it's scary, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I just want to kind of segue just a little bit, right? So what I like to do is I like to do a this or that segment, right? So I've got this or that personal development, right? Are you ready? And this one I'm going to go down it. This or that personal development edition. Morning routine or night routine?
I don't have either. I just have 5 things that I need to get done every day. And
Okay.
if I get those done, then I win the day.
Okay. Journaling or meditating?
Meditating.
Speaking on stage or coaching one-to-one?
Speaking on stage.
Writing a book or hosting a podcast?
It's funny. So many of these are both. Write a book.
Okay.
But actually write a book.
Okay. Failure as a teacher or success as a motivation or as a motivator?
I think failure as a teacher.
Okay. Done is better than perfect or excellence takes time?
Excellence takes time.
All right. Last one. Work from vision or work from structure?
Vision.
Gotcha. All right. So what I'd like you to do is just take a moment, and that's your camera right there. This has been, honestly, dude, like just sitting here with you for the past 40, whatever time that we've been sitting here has been very, very, very impactful for me. I think that we share a lot of the same core values, right?
Yeah.
And what I'd like you to do is just take a moment. That's your camera. Just tell everybody how they can find you on social media, anything that you want to promote, any events that you have coming up soon, because I would like for anybody who watches this to have an opportunity to sit with you and learn from you the way I just have.
Yeah, and just before I do that, just a quick testimonial to you. I have thought more and more about just saying no to any podcasts that are virtual, just because it's just not fun anymore. And so I have a lot of respect for people like you who are still doing in-person podcasts. And I tell a lot of my speakers, I say, listen, if you want to stick out in this world, you will have to go to actually in-person events. Mm-hmm. Because here's the thing, so many people are trying to take the easy way out and do virtual. And you will always have to do virtual. You will always have to use AI in this modern age. Yep. You always will have to do that. But the thing is, if you want to stick out, you will need to connect with humans more and more. And I got to know you a lot better today. You got to know me a lot better today. And I think we'll forever have a mutual respect for each other based on today's conversation. Yep. And I see so many people shying away from doing things like you're doing right here. So thank you for having me on, and thank you for being a great leader in the personal development world so that we can continue to grow together.
I appreciate that. You're very welcome. And I have to give credit where it's due. I mean, if it wasn't for Claudio and the team here at Kai Visions, it would be very difficult. He makes it very easy to just show up and have everything here. So if I didn't have his assistance, and it would be very difficult. So, I got to give credit where it's due. And I personally feel that meeting with people and sitting down, to your point, is so much more impactful than sitting down behind the screen. I've done a bunch of podcasts where I'm on a Zoom and you got bad reception and you got this and you got that, but it doesn't take away from that feeling and looking into somebody's eyes and having that conversation. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And then if you want to contact me, my phone number is 607-348-6136. And then Brandon Gaydorus, pretty much on everything.
What's the next event and or mastermind that you have coming up?
Yeah, so we got an elite speaker school this month, which that's only for people who've been through the previous one. That's a really exciting one. We go into a school on the Friday and we talk to students all day.
Okay.
And then Carl, the guy I teach with, he has a youth empowerment show where the hundreds of students go to the school and he brings the celebrity guests. Last year, he brought Justina Valentine. Who later that night, she was performing in front of a sold-out Barclays Center for the Wild 'N Out show. So that was crazy when she came to the school with us. So we got that coming up. And then I got a marketing mastermind coming up on November 7th and 8th. So we're going to talk about half of it on the organic side and then about half on the digital side. So I partnered with this guy, Eric Monies, for the digital side, and then I talk about the organic. And then the next speaker school in Stanford is January 23rd and 24th.
Amazing, bro. Listen, what you're doing is honestly super important. And I don't know if people tell you that enough. One thing that I wanted to do here with this platform was tell people stories. And, we get into the background stuff, but like the meat and potatoes of what you're doing is super duper duper impactful and very important and necessary. So I imagine, and this is going to be one of my final questions for you, is what impact or what do you want your legacy to be long after you're gone? What do you want people to say about Brandon?
It's funny. I rely on my mentors for a lot of advice on deep questions like this. And one time my mentor, Tom, he said, I'm so sick of people asking me what their purpose is. He said, you got one purpose on this earth, and that's to leave it better than when you got here. And
Very
so
true.
and so when I leave this earth, I want it to be better than when I got here. And so when people think of me, there's this concept I learned when I was younger that's called the 150 people funeral test. And if over 150 people show up to your funeral, it typically shows that you had an impact on quite a bit of people's lives. So I think of Muhammad Ali's funeral when people are just flooding the streets. I think of Charlie Kirk just passed away. I saw that they did the remembrance in the Arizona Cardinals Stadium. Kobe Bryant's, I watched a lot of the speeches when they did the service in the Lakers arena. And it's kind of one of those things. I just want people to be able to learn from a lot of the things that I learned from when I'm not here anymore. So that's a reason why when I get asked to hop on podcasts like yours, it's an easy yes, because it's like, this is another opportunity for me to leave something behind. And I spoke at a brunch right after Charlie Kirk passed away. And I told everyone there, I said, how many of you would be happy with what you left behind if you died tomorrow?
What was the response? Was it
some people yes, some people not, and I think about that. I've thought about that for years, and seeing Charlie, because Charlie's pretty much my age, like we're pretty much the same age, and so I could relate a lot to a lot of the stuff that he's done. Maybe not, from a political round. I don't know much about politics, but I can relate to the amount of going out of his comfort zone, the amount of people he's connected with, the amount of videos and content he's pushed out there. I can relate to a lot of that. And so for years, I've honestly said, if I die tomorrow, I'd be okay. Like, I hope I don't, because I got so much more left I want to do. But like, I can honestly say up to this point in my life, I have put so much out there that like you could probably see videos from me for 10 years. I just have that much content out. Here's the thing. I also asked my mentor after I took my first speaker school, he huddles us all around. He says, ask any question that you want. He says, but don't He said, don't ask me at the bar tonight. Ask me right now. And I said, why do most people not get what they want in life? He said, Brandon, most people won't get what they want. Most people don't get what they want. Most people will lay in bed at the end of their life with the look of regret on their face because they don't go after what they want fast enough.
Yep.
This is in October of 2018. This is October 2025 when we're shooting this podcast.
Yep.
I said, that's not going to be me. But I wasn't a pretender. I just didn't say, oh, like that's not going to be me. I said, I got to be a contender and I got to do something that consistently leads to that.
Yep.
And so I knew after taking that first speaker school, people weren't going to hire me. I was 25 years old. Like I didn't know crap. Right. But I knew I could use social media to help work on a lot of these skills that I learned that weekend. And so I said, I'm going to commit to posting 4 times a week, and I want them to be mostly videos. If they're mostly videos, then I'm going to get practice and I'm going to put my message out there. So since then, I've put out 5 books. I've did 3 comedy specials. I've had 5 personal development conferences, 2 TEDx events. But most importantly, I'd be shocked if you go back 7 years on the Warm Heart Life Instagram page. I would be shocked if you find 1 week where there's not at least 4 posts.
Action.
So that's
massive action now. There might not be tomorrow.
Yeah.
I always go back to the, Apollo Creed. There is no tomorrow. If you treat today like there is no tomorrow, you will be able to make massive impact on this world. And with that, that's our time for the day. Thank you so much, man. And honestly, Brandon, like you just never know. And this is why I do this, to meet people like you. And now hopefully we will be able to interact and help each other build that legacy that we both want.
Amazing. Well, thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. And this has been another episode of the Padernacht Podcast. Thank you all for joining us, and see you guys next week.